I hate when it's in my face. Hi, welcome to Two Non-Doctors. I'm Liz Mealy.
I'm Maria Shahada. Ah.
Oh, how was your day, Maria? You've had this full day without me.
Yeah, I did have a full day without you. And too many. Too many full days without Liz. But it was good. I was walking home today and this girl just was like, she was on a bike. I was at the crosswalk and I was going towards her anyway because I was walking that way. She's just waving at me. And she waved at me like we knew each other, like, oh, hey, it's you. And I'm here and we're running into each other. You know, like it was almost like a step above, like, should I just ghost this person? It was a sort of tentative wave. But then I was like, oh, wait, I don't recognize her. Shit, where do I know her from? And I'm like flipping through my head, like, where would I know this person from? And then she goes, you don't know me, but I'm
thank God, because I was having a panic attack.
I was like, you should have screamed that from across the street because I was really reluctant to come up to you. She was like, but I'm a fellow misophones and I saw you talk about it on stage and I'd never like heard of that before, but I have it, and it was really great, and you're awesome. And then she just wrote off.
You're like, no, friendship. I did love that like thing where you're like, oh, I don't know this person. Why the fuck are they talking to me? And then they give you like a compliment, and you're like, oh, friendship.
Seriously, because it's so off-putting at first. Like that actually happened to me when I was like getting onto the tube. I was on the platform, and this girl kept staring me down, and I was trying to ignore it. I was like, I feel like this girl's staring at me, but I'm not going to look over at her. Like maybe she's looking past me.
Are you like running your tongue over your teeth and like trying to figure out if you have boogers? There's no other reason this person's staring at me.
Yeah. And then I kind of glance over and she is still staring at me. And I'm like, yes. Can we do something about this?
I'm kind of waiting for it to be like your father sent me. And I was just making sure it was you.
Yeah. Well, because it was really like almost like she was trying to make sure it was me. Like she was leaning. It was really weird and intense. And she was like, you're a comedian. I've seen you. And I was like, cool. Like, thank God it's that.
Hey, I thought I was getting murdered, but cool that you're a fan.
Yeah. And then she was like, you're so funny. And then the door shut. I'm like, no, that was the part I wanted.
I literally, you're like, the whole time I was scared, and then I finally feel relaxed and I lose the connection.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on, life.
Yeah. The way I remember it in my head is always funnier than like one time I was kissing my ex-fiance and at a station, and this girl, like, I feel like she was just standing in between us waiting for us to be done kissing. And I look over and she's like, you're a comedian. I saw you at the show last night. It's like, a little privacy, please. Yeah, always flattering. Like, it's always flattering. If you recognize me, say something.
But so I have two stories.
Yeah.
One, when I was in the UK, this is probably like 4 years ago. I think it was around, maybe it might have been either the year of Edinburgh or the year after. But I'm in the UK, I'm walking to a gig and I'm kind of like rushing in between gigs. And this car slows down, super creepy, like super scary. I'm like, oh my God, this drive-bys, they're everywhere. Like this, you know what I mean? I was like, I can't wait for this UK drive-by where it's not a gun. It's like, just like a bat. They slow down and they go, Liz Mealy, I'm a huge fan. And then they just keep, and it was in a British accent. And I was like, and I was on the phone with my mom. That's what I remember is, oh, I know exactly when this was, because my mom was coming. It was the trip where my mom was going to come to the UK. And so I'm in a car on the phone with my mom, literally where my joke comes from my special of where she was just like, what if I die on the plane? And I'm literally calming my mom down while I'm rushing in between spots. So I'm literally being like, Mom, it's going to be okay. Flying is very safe. And then they were like, Liz Mealy, I'm a huge fan. I go, Mom, I just got recognized. Give me a second. It was like pretty big deal right now. But it was like so many conflicting energies. Like I can't be late. My mom is sad.
Your mom, she's terrified. Something is going to happen. The plane will fall out of the sky. There'll be terrorists. And like this terrorist is like, I want to kill everybody. And then he goes, wait, Liz Mealy, love you. Big fan.
Big fan. So sorry I have to end your life and your career, but you're doing great. Also, the best, literally serendipitously, like out of a movie, best moment I was ever recognized is, my ex broke my heart like 13, 14 years ago. It gets older and older, but I think it's only 12. But like 40 years ago, man breaks my heart. But anyway, broke up. I blocked him. I didn't talk to him for years. And then we kind of, talked, got over stuff and became friends. And we would get coffee like once a year. So he's in New York. He wasn't living in New York anymore. He was in New York and he's meeting me at this tea shop, and I'm waiting in line. There was already a long line. So I'm waiting in line, and he walks up, we start talking, we're about to order, and this girl goes, "Hey, I'm so sorry. I know this isn't appropriate. I'm so sorry to interrupt. I'm a huge fan. I love feminist sex positions. I love da da da." She starts listing like stuff. She's like, "I'm just like a really big fan, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." And then she left. And like the dude looked up at me, goes, was that planned? And I was like, could not have planned it better if it was. Like, what a great actress if that was. It was just so perfectly like, "Oh, sorry, you broke my heart and you haven't seen me for 5 years. How are you doing?" Like,
No big deal. One more story. I did town hall like when I was like first getting into stand up. It was like Maz Jobrani's show, and he had some of us open for him. That was when we were having. I had pizza in the green room, and everybody.
Yeah,
I put
I
it on
remember
Instagram,
this.
and everybody was like, "The pizza looks gross." It's like, come on, man.
Come on, it's in my mouth.
And it was a fun night, but and then I had to work at French Roast. It's a 24-hour diner. I had to work like super early in the morning, and I was so hungover. And this woman was like, recognized me from the show. And I'm just like, "Oh, thanks." So, did you want your eggs scrambled, sunny side up, fried? Comedy's so humbling like that. You
Oh
could
my
like
God.
literally, I was signing autographs after the show, and then
Yeah.
it
I
just
used to
served.
perform for thousands of people, and now I'm making sure thousands of people are fed the next day.
Yeah.
Oh, New York City. Announcements?
Yeah.
Patrons, people that give us money. Oh, we've had a couple of new patrons. We're so grateful for you guys. If you don't know, you can get stickers, you can get weekly bonus episodes, you can get monthly bonus episodes, you can control our Googles, you can be a Google guest, you can get a signed copy of my book, you can get our stand-up. There's so many fun benefits to being one of our Patreons. So you can join at patreon.com/2nondoctors, full-word doctors. And just thank you to everybody that supports us. We are so grateful.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Follow us on the socials. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at 2nondoctors. It's the number 2, full word doctors, or on Instagram at 2nondrs. And if you have time, you can leave us a rate and review on Apple Podcasts because it helps us get seen. We need to get seen, I think. It helps us feel better. We need to feel better. And basically, all around, really appreciative of it. Thanks to everyone who's left reviews so far. And I didn't really like think of any personal news. I'm sure I'll be performing in London up to the end of the year.
Yeah. I just added a date for October. I'll be in Richmond, Virginia, at Sandman's Comedy Club, October 7th to the 9th. My buddy Umar Khan is opening for me. He's brilliant.
Sandman's a terrible name for a comedy club.
I think it's his last name.
Oh, he should have done something else. Sandman is like Mr. Sandman, and which is a sleep guy. That's the sleep monster that comes and puts you to sleep, and it's
Mr.
like
Sandman. Do, 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 do.
right. And then, but
sang it
this is
episode.
a place where you go to laugh. You don't want to like in you think about going to sleep, not laughing.
These are all great points. Super valid. I'll bring them up when I'm there. I'll let them know that this was inappropriately named, and I would like to be refunded for my inconvenience in cash.
Perfect and great.
But yeah, I'll be in Chicago, Richmond, Virginia, Kansas City, and St. Louis in October. Come see me. And fan mail.
Yeah.
Okay, fan mail. This is actually from James on YouTube. He says, "Hi, I also have Destructic Eczema." It was I don't know how to say it, but it was an eczema that I had to look up a couple Googles ago because I had some issues. My dermatologist said it happens because when you damage your skin, watery fluid forms, which can drain into the hands and feet where the skin is tougher. So it forms into tiny little blisters. If you keep damaging your skin, those blisters can join together to form bigger and bigger blisters. I've had it so bad, my hands and feet end up covered in giant blisters. The only thing that helps ease it when my hands got too hot and itchy and I just want to rub my hands together as hard as I can is to hold an ice pack. Hope this helps. One, what I did, both from reading about that type of eczema and having experienced it before, what is nice about it is that it does go away pretty quickly. So my hands hurt for about like 3 days, especially with just being aware of it and being uncomfortable. I didn't do too much different other than just kind of put a lot of like extreme lotion on them, but it went away. It calmed after 3 days and it went completely away after about a week. And then my feet, it's calmed probably within 2 days, and it's still a little like not happy, but it's fine. But what I have learned, just like you said, is just like, you don't want to itch it because itching makes it spread more. Is that whole, like, yeah, having an ice pack, putting something on it. It sucks because some of it is like avoiding washing your hands, which is not in this climate, in this COVID-y climate, you don't want to do. But just in general, like, I'm a pretty hygienic person, but it did take a lot of like, I would like save up my hand washings. I usually wear gloves to do like cleaning and stuff like that, but I would try to wash my hands like twice a day. Or I actually tried not leaving the house so I didn't have to wash them when I came back in.
Isn't
Like
hand washing like just what they said at the beginning because they didn't know what else to tell people to do?
No, hand washing is always super important. And they're just because in general, so like my brother actually told me a fact that you know how you're supposed to wash your hands after you go to the bathroom?
Yes.
That is technically, you don't, I mean, after you poop, you should, just because that's not great. But in general, washing your hands every time you go to the bathroom is actually just so that you get a couple of hand washings in, because we go to the bathroom like a couple of times a day, me like 90, but in general, to keep bacteria down, I'm saying this like a moron, so somebody can correct me if they want to, but just in general, having a couple different times during the day to get bacteria off your hands so you're not spreading as much is helpful. And it just makes more sense to say to do it after being in a bathroom, especially a public bathroom, which is even grosser. It just, and they're there clearly. It's like, the point is to wash your hands a couple of times a day. It actually doesn't have to always be after you go to the bathroom. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But that's something my brother said. He's smarter than me, so I just trust him. But yeah, I really did try to like save up my hand washings because my hands were in that much pain. But thank you, James. I appreciate that. And I feel fortunate that I've never had like a giant blister, but I definitely, like, it was just small ones all over my hands and feet. And I was like, oh no, I deformed myself. Like, it is one of those moments where you're just like, oh no, this is who I am forever. And I felt like a witch. It was kind of fun. Thank you, James.
Good time of year to feel like a witch.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm in character for my personality.
Exactly. Thanks, James.
Googles.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to know what you Googled this week.
Oh boy, Liz. This Google. The Google was, will mice crawl on you in your sleep?
Can I just, before you go into it, because I know you have a story behind this, I hope people recall early pandemic, I was like, can you share food with a mouse? Because I saw a mouse eating, like I saw a mouse in my old apartment eating our stuff. But I love where it's just like, I have some mouse questions unrelated to my living situation.
We've gone from sharing food with mice to sleeping with them. And I just want to make sure you need to use protection.
If I am going to start a relationship with this mouse, can we, 1, go out to eat together, 2, snuggle?
Yeah. Well, look,
Please tell me your story.
One of my flatmates had said she'd spotted mice a couple of times in the kitchen. Then the other flatmate spotted it. She moved. So what happened was her food in her cupboard had been eaten into. Like there was a hole at the bottom of the package.
Yeah.
And then she was like, how the fuck? The microwave's right under her cupboard. And so then she realized they were crawling up the microwave and getting in that way. And there was like poop on the microwave. It was all very disgusting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, foul, gross, like, let's tell the landlord. But no action was taken on my end. I was just like, ew, that's nasty. Let's do something about it. But I didn't really. And then Johnny was staying with me because he's between like homes. He's moving. And I thought I heard a mouse in my room, like while I was sleeping. And I was like, Johnny, Johnny, are you moving your feet? He's like, I'm not moving my feet. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, I'm not moving my feet. I just keep hearing rustling, but it sounded like on the other side of the room.
Sorry, for a second I thought it was in your bed, and I was like, oh, you're snuggling.
Oh yeah, no. But I woke up at 3 a.m. I think the rustling might have waken me up. I went to pee. I came back, and it had crawled across like this like pin board that I have, and it crawled across my bed frame. It ran across
Mm.
my headboard. And I was like, ah,
You
and I was like, Johnny, and he's like, what? Like, he was totally asleep. And I was like, we had to sleep in the living room. And then I Googled, like, before I decided to sleep in the living room, I Googled, can mice crawl on you in bed? And yes, they will. They don't give a shit.
they don't give a fuck.
And if it's how you get to food, the fine, they'll do it.
Yeah.
Problem is I don't eat in my room. I hate
I was
eating
just
in my
gonna
room. We've
ask you
talked
that.
about that. We've talked about it, because you'll eat in bed. I just won't. I've
Yeah.
always been kind of weird about having food in my room. Even when Johnny came over with some stuff, he had a baguette like on his stuff on the floor, and I was like, that's gonna go. This is before the mice stuff. I was like, that's going in the kitchen. Like, like there's
Yeah.
no food in this room. So I don't know what the fuck it was looking for. I don't know why it was here. I don't know why it wanted to come near the bed. And why aren't you scared of me? That's the part that hurt the most. Why aren't I
I'm
scared?
an adult. I just
I'm
love
a
this like
big
tiny little woman that's
human.
like,
Yeah. Um,
take me seriously.
Genuinely.
My little sister had she got two mice. I was probably like 12 or 13. She got two mice. My mom checked. They were both female. And then one of them got pregnant. And
Ooh.
my mom was like, "Oh no, one of them is not female."
Oh shit.
And no joke, fast forward, we had hundreds of mice. I'm not even exaggerating. So my brother had
Oh
a
god.
chameleon. And so my mom would sneak out the baby mice and feed it to the chameleon before, like, because that's one of the things is you can give it to the chameleon. And then she started putting mice to sleep because there was like too many mice. She was selling them. We had like a million mice. Anyway, they would escape all the time in our house of children and people.
Wow.
And I remember I was sleeping and it crawled over my body. And you know, like sometimes you feel stuff when you sleep, like people talk about like sleep paralysis and you can't move, or like you feel something, but then nothing's there. And that's why people believe in ghosts.
Yeah.
I remember sleeping and feeling something. And you know, you think, maybe my brother's waking me up. Maybe my
Ugh.
alarm didn't go off and my mom is yelling at. A mouse crawled over my body. And I was so mean to my little sister. I was like, your millions of mice are trying to attack me. Like, I was just like
You're
12 or 13. I was like shaking my sister. I was like, get rid of them. They're attacking the family. It just crawled over my body, but you would have thought it was trying to eat my eyeballs. I was so mad and I was so upset. But that was like, I think I had a real conniption. I
Oh
remember
my
I did not
god.
handle that well.
Why would you? I think you handled it really well, considering hundreds of mice just escaping. That's fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
How are you so well adjusted? Your therapist deserves so much credit.
She's really great. She
Yeah.
really is. Is there
There's a guy coming Friday, and then there's 3 trips coming. I just don't know why I was, and I'm wondering if it's because there's a flat above us that maybe it was just like
well, I'm
between
assuming
kitchens.
maybe there's access to the outside from your room, and that's why they were either coming in from your room and you were just a passageway.
Oh god. I mean, yeah, it was
The
in
other thing
vain, you
is
little fucker. There's no food here.
also is your door, does it have space underneath it?
Yeah.
You can put something there. Like I had because we had mice in our kitchen and I was always scared that it would be in my room because of my past. So they had these like noise blockers where it's just two foam things that you slide under the door
Austin
and
never
it's
got
supposed
rid of the mice. People are always
she
saying,
did.
yeah.
No. She was actually like up until she died a great mouse hunter. The problem is she wasn't always home. And so
Oh,
just pheromones alone, like having a cat, and that's the other thing is like you guys used to have a cat, just having a cat in your apartment, the pheromones kind of like are like keep them away. And then if you do have some kind of brave mouse, most cats, even your fat lazy cats, are pretty good at hunting them. She was great. This mouse was always when she was gone because I'd be gone for months at a time. They would come back. It would take me usually like a week or two to pick pasta back up. And that was really the problem.
that's the
So
thing, is like I'm always at Johnny's, and because he's not at his place anymore, we're here. I'm like, maybe this mouse has just been living in my room and I didn't know because I'm never here.
you would kind of know. They're pretty bad about droppings and stuff, and you're a pretty clean person. You would know.
But I have a lot of
I think
stuff. You know what I mean?
you would know.
Yeah.
I promise you would know.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, either get a cat. That's solution number one. I have some great names picked out if you need help with that.
Yeah.
And then the just don't let them do glue traps. I think those are so evil.
Yeah, my landlord was like, "Have you tried humane traps?" I was like, "Okay, I don't have a car. I'm not walking a mouse 20 minutes to a field. Like, it's just not, I'm not doing that. So let's skip that and just get me an exterminator."
Have you thought about building its own home so it has its own kitchen
Yeah.
and then stocking it with like some of its favorite foods from Trader Joe's? Have
Yeah.
you talked to this mouse? Like maybe you can have like a situation where you guys are like roommates. It just feels like you haven't even given this mouse a chance.
I really haven't. Yeah, we should have a 1-to-1, just like, me and the mouse. Maybe it's a sitcom.
Is there endangerment of snuggling with this mouse? I don't even know if you answered that question.
Um, probably before now on Friday. Yeah, we've been sleeping in the living room.
No, but did like Google say that there's an issue?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they'll crawl on you. Yeah, they'll go in your bed. Rats will too. Shit will bite you.
Oh, that's true. That's 100% true.
Yeah.
So will cats. My cat did it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. My Google, does plucking gray hair make it multiply?
See, that's the myth, isn't it?
It is, and it pissed me off. So I found my first gray hair. It was gray. It was real. It was right at the root. Like I tried to be like, it could be like, when I had highlights. First of all, I've cut them out. And second of all, they would not be at the root. So first I see it and it's like, what? Pluck it, put it against black. I was like, okay, it is what it is. Like I literally did like a whole science
Analyze
experiment.
the situation. Is
I'm like dropping drops on it.
Devoid of color, or am I seeing things? Is everything
Exactly.
else gray? No, nothing else
Am I
is gray.
losing pigment in my eyes? I'm like taking my contacts out and putting them back in. Truly, like, oh God. Not upset about it. If anything, all my friends are older than me. So like all my friends were like, welcome. Like everybody's like, phew. And what I really loved is my mom stopped dyeing her hair like 5 years ago. And she has like gray highlights. I love my mom's hair. And then she dyes it different colors and stuff like that. But like, I'm not completely upset, although I do have like 17 jokes about my skincare regimen. So clearly I am trying to fight time. But it did I was like, oh God. So I tweeted about it. I texted my friends, whatever. And then of course you get all these messages that are like, you shouldn't have plucked it. You're going to grow up a whole bunch. And I was like, I'm not smart, but even I know that's not how science works. Like it just made me it really makes me angry when these myths that sound stupid, everybody just blatantly believes them. Like I think one of my Googles was like, you can't have a cut onion. You can't reuse a cut onion. And you're like,
yeah.
why?
Right.
And like
it'll
in my
poison
mind,
you
I
or
was,
something.
what does that mean? And like everybody's like, yeah, it was like some shitty grandma said that to somebody, and then people fucking talked about it, and now everybody thinks that. So plucking gray hair will only it will only be replaced by like another gray hair in that place, because there's only one hair that is able to grow per follicle. So your surrounding hairs will not turn white until their follicle pigment cell dies. So
Unless
basically
they're so shocked by what you just did to that hair, they're like,
yeah,
no,
not Bill, not Bill. But yeah, like that makes sense. Like it's not like, because a part of me was like, let's just think of this logically. If that's how more hair would grow, wouldn't people balding do that?
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah,
that was
right.
true, then every guy would take the little hair they already have and start plucking them, and then they would fucking be a cheetah pet. But that's not true. So why does that work for gray hair?
It's almost like Clairol started that rumor. Don't pluck it, dye it.
Yes, that's so smart. Don't pluck, dye. And somebody's just like, why? And they're just like,
why am I dying?
Yeah. But yeah, it was just like, it makes me, sometimes I read that and it's like so prevalent. It just makes me angry. And I'm just like, I'll fucking show you. I know I'm right, but the internet is going to be my fucking backup. So yeah, it's a full blown myth and everybody should shut up. I'm angry about it. But I am curious. It was like, dude, it was in my part, smack dab in the middle. And it was like, if my hair's really short now, I would say it was like 2/3 of the hair was gray. And I was like,
I get gray hairs in the middle too. And I'm like annoyed by it. I'm like, why can't I get like cool, like, can I have like a strip of gray? Just like one. Yeah.
My mom was getting the Bonnie Raitt. I've always loved the Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah,
That's like
the
fun.
Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah, she like made it cool as shit. Okay, this Let's Get Personal is very you. I picked
Is
it out
it?
for you. Yes, it's super you.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah, I think so.
What food have you never eaten but would really like to try? There's
I've
two
tried
ways
it.
it could.
Yeah,
I was
go
gonna say
ahead.
it could be exotic, and somebody's like, I want to try shark,
Yeah.
or it could be just certain dishes that you've always heard of that you would want to either try to make it or just try it in general.
On Big Night, you ever seen the movie Big Night?
No.
Stanley Tucci and Tony Shalhoub play Italian brothers who have moved from Italy to America, and they started a restaurant. And Tony Shalhoub is a chef, and he's like an artist chef. Like his cuisine is like takes time. He puts care into it. And then like the first scene you see is like this couple in a restaurant. They're in the restaurant, and they're like complaining about the food. And they're like, well, when does the spaghetti come? He's like, what spaghetti? And he's like, it doesn't come with a side of spaghetti. Like, they're like, can I have a side of spaghetti? And he's like, why? And then he's like, of course. Wait. But like, so the restaurant across the street, Pascal's, does really well. They light their dishes on fire, and it's all a big show. And it really is, it's one of my favorite movies for so many reasons, but mostly because it's sort of a metaphor for like crafty comedy, crafty art, crafty like comedy that isn't hack basically, and then like the hack comedy that like people pay attention to and love, and how it drives you crazy because you're like,
yeah,
like we're really thoughtful comedy, or like, we're not like the Friday Saturday night like
black people are like this and white people are like this, and people go nuts, and you're like, what?
Yes,
you're just making weird racist statements, and that's what you get so mad.
Yeah. So they have a big dinner party at the restaurant, and I want to try all the food because like it just looks good. But they have what's called a timpano, and it's like this Italian dome dish, and it looks like it's like pasta and sauce and meat, and like has different layers and stuff, and it's really complicated to make, and it takes a lot of time.
Sounds like lasagna.
Yeah.
Continue.
It is like lasagna, but it's got a crust, so it has a layer of dough, so it's lasagna with a crust. It's like a pie lasagna.
Oh my God. It's an empanada lasagna.
It's not an empanada. What?
Calzone empanada.
What are you doing?
I'm that girl I'm like that family that's like, can I have a side of spaghetti? Is this like,
Yeah.
Is this like lasagna empanada? And they're like, get out of my restaurant.
Yeah. So this showstopper of a dish, a large drum of pasta filled with ziti, meatballs, provolone, mozzarella, hard-boiled eggs, salami, and tomato sauce.
Oh man, that is a dumpster of food.
Yeah. And then like it can dry out easily, and so it's like it takes a real craft to make it, and it just looked really good. So I think that most dishes I've seen on TV, I'm like, I want that. Even like I remember watching Harry and the Hendersons. I'm really impressionable because I was watching Harry and the Hendersons, and he threw a burger and fries in the backseat to like get Harry into the car, and I was like, I want a burger and fries now. Like it looks so good, just like a wrapped little burger and fries.
Wow. That really took a turn. Yeah. I knew you'd give a great answer.
Oh, thanks.
Mine was ostrich eggs. I was like, I don't know. People talk about it.
Okay. What?
I don't know. Just because they're bigger. This is where I'm like the moron. I'm just like, oh no, big eggs.
Big eggs.
You just need one instead of three. Isn't that crazy?
It makes a big omelet.
And so we're like, oh, you got a big omelet. I'm like, ostrich eggs. And they're like, smart.
So smart. Do they say anything about the taste? Like, is it?
I know nothing about it. I just know that it's a thing.
Sounds like, I don't like the idea of other animals' eggs. Like I can barely handle the idea of a chicken egg. And then you throw in like duck eggs, ostrich eggs.
Say, doesn't the UK have some different eggs?
Yeah, everyone has different. Yeah. It's around, but like, ugh. Like if I know it's a duck egg, huh?
Do they taste different, or is
I think a little bit? I feel like duck eggs are more gay meat, but that's just, it could be just the thought of the egg. But like, that's okay. I've been on the verge of a sneeze forever.
Yeah, those were loud too. I really spared everybody.
But I just like the thought of a duck egg like makes me sick to my stomach. And I don't know, but ducks, I don't like ducks.
Can I just say I don't like ducks? Like, I just need the world to know.
They
It's
disgust
interesting.
me. Male ducks have corkscrew penises,
That's
which
true.
fucking disgusts me to no end. And they rape female ducks who have had to evolutionarily like have an L-shaped vagina. And I still don't understand how they end up having
So many
babies.
ducklings.
I just, ducks are disgusting.
No, they're pretty gross. Yeah. I don't know. I guess I just thought it was curious, and I was like, I just kind of like, I always liked over easy eggs, and I just kind of like the idea of this giant. I just feel like I would feel like a cartoon character.
And pig cheek.
What?
Pig cheek of a pig.
Okay. Is it supposed to taste good?
Yay! It's all like it's fleshy, and I've just seen like Anthony Bourdain ate a lot of hog or pig, or I don't know what the difference is, but in his travels, a lot of countries do pig well, and like pig cheek is his favorite part, and it does look good. I gotta be honest.
Did he say what it kind of tastes like?
I mean, I don't know. I imagine it's moist and it's just like a juicy, meaty cheek. I don't know if the flesh. I think the flesh would be like crispy, and then the meat itself would be tender. But I'm just guessing. So that's why it would be something I would want to try.
Okay. I knew this was a question for you because you're like more into food, and you've like both look at menus, and I feel like you're, I can't, wish my stomach was bigger and I could order everything. Like, I feel like there's always, I remember trying moose when I was in Alaska. This was like 8 or 9 years ago. But I don't remember it, and I want to try it again. And I think I liked it. I think it was on pizza.
Moose pizza. Was it like a salami, or was it
was
ground?
like, I think it was ground the same way that you might have like something. Yeah, it was like ground. But I think I remember liking it, but I also think I don't remember being emotionally present, or it was really late. I think the times were really off. It was like during the time where like the sun was out at like 11 o'clock at night, and it really like messed with your brain.
Yeah. I tried like moose stuff. I feel like when I was in Norway, I tried like a moose sausage. It was some sort of sausage, and I wasn't into it. I've only had venison once. It was a meatloaf, and my friend in high school, my friend's grandmother made it, and then she was like, she was like, do you like deer? And I was like, oh no, I don't know, I've never had it. And she was like, you have now. And then she just laughed while her cigarette kind of hung out of her mouth.
That's not how you do that.
That's not what you do, is it? You let me know first. Yeah, it was good though.
What I did really like was I was in Australia. It's not kangaroo. What's the other one? Somebody on the internet help me. It's not kangaroo meat. It's the other one. But like I had that as sausage, and it was really good. Like I really liked it.
I need to know what it was.
I mean, kangaroo meat is a thing.
Lamb, beef, game, crocodile. No, thank you. Tasmanian beef, emu.
No, Australia. It's like a kangaroo, but it's not Australia. I don't think it was kangaroo meat. It was something else, but it's like a kangaroo.
Okay.
Another marsupial, perhaps. I don't know. Not a koala.
Wombat? Was it a wombat?
I don't think it was wombat.
Right.
Anyway,
I like the painting in the back. Yeah,
I do love that painting. I kind of want to I don't know how to get a cigarette. Hold on.
Yeah. I mean, you did that.
Okay, topic. You ready to get sad?
I mean, her whole vibe, like the turtleneck, the red hair, it's all 60s, and you just didn't have any of that going on. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Your haircut's more that than this bob I have going on.
Yeah. Topic.
Super triggering. It is neglect. Neglect as a form of child abuse. Get ready, guys.
Just neglect as a form of child abuse, or are we going to visit neglect in relationships or neglect among people you're around?
Oh, I did it for childhood.
Okay.
What did you do?
I did a little bit of relationship. So I'll just cover that.
Yeah, I think, absolutely. And if for some reason we don't get to it, we can spawn it into more. They had a list, which I'll go through, and it's every single one.
Okay.
Which is it took me a long time to, I, it took me a long time to understand that I had an abusive childhood, but then also to learn both sides of it, both the neglect and other abuse. And like, you just don't, especially when you like your parents. Like I do like my parents, and my parents are good people, but that, and just so it's clear, there's neglect, and then there's also this thing called deprivational abuse. And while neglect is a form of child abuse, it is not deprivational abuse. So just so we're clear, deprivational abuse is when you like force isolation, food deprivation, withholding love. Like you're maliciously doing it to manipulate and torture a child. And I used to read stories about it, and like I was like, oh. And that's the other thing, is you hear about somebody having such a much worse childhood that you're like, oh, my parents weren't that bad. But like I remember there was like this book that everybody read in middle school, and I was like, I cannot read that, but I heard about it, where it was like a woman that like would like force her kid to eat their own vomit, and would like lock them in a closet, and like just this like real like just fucking awful stuff. That's deprivational abuse, where you're using neglect and isolation and not feeding them as a way of hurting them, as opposed to what we're probably going to talk about, which is it's not purposeful. It's just either this is how they were raised, or they're a single mother, or they aren't an emotionally connecting person. It's not on purpose. These parents still love their kids. They are just doing this damage unconsciously for whatever reason. And I just need that to be, because I think I always was like, no, they never tried to hurt me. That it wasn't purposeful. But you can experience abuse even if it wasn't on purpose. You know what I mean? And I think that's where the confusion was for most of my life, where I'm like, no, my parents didn't want to be the worst.
Yeah, everybody's doing their best. It's just damage gets done.
Yeah. But I did find it like, I was like, oh, I hate that I can check off every box. I can go through them very quickly.
Yeah, go through them. Yeah.
So lack of adequate food, shelter, and clothing, and that could include cleanliness of the home and clothes. Like think of like a hoarder that, again, is making an unlivable space, even though you technically have a shelter. Emotional and psychological abandonment. The parent is like emotionally absent. Being a low priority. I think that speaks for itself. You're clearly bottom on the totem pole. Not feeling heard. So if the child's not allowed to ask questions or express opinion. Not being allowed to have, not being allowed to have or express emotions. So you end up believing your emotions are unhealthy, and you end up stuffing them down. When that happens, when you're not able to express your emotions, you often use substances to try to numb out and not feel your feelings. You can also often hide your feelings till there's a tipping point, and then you kind of explode. Being used as a surrogate spouse, known as emotional incest. And it's basically they force you into an adult role. And then there's also being forced into the role of a surrogate parent. Typically happens with the oldest child, often happens when there's a single parent, but basically the older sibling ends up taking on the housework, the cooking, the cleaning, and the child rearing of younger siblings. And then last one is being overly controlled. And this is kind of weird, where you end up actually getting lots of attention, but you don't learn to think, feel, and act or react for yourself. And basically they call it the neglect of the soul, where you're, rather than like guiding a child and like hearing what the child actually wants, you're forcing them into this box to be maintained by the parents. So it's less parenting and more this kind of boss control relationship. And like I said, the parents don't realize they're doing this. You know what I mean? It's either how they were raised or their circumstances. Like, you can't blame a single parent working 2 jobs that are just trying to feed her kids. Yes, their kids are now a product of neglect, but they clearly love their kids and they're doing everything they can to take care of them. But the result is this form of neglect.
Right.
Not physically being around. And if you're too tired, you're not emotional.
Or drunk. Like if you're abusing drugs or an alcoholic, you're absolutely not there. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You are physically there, but you aren't. And like this book, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, I've talked about it before. It's all about like addiction and stuff. But the biggest thing they talk about with parenting is attunement. So what they used to think is just being a mother and being present was good enough. So you're a mom, you're taking care of your kid, that's enough. But they actually said it's really about attunement. So like if your baby is crying, you should feel sad and concerned. If your baby is happy, then you're, present and happy with the baby. If your baby is angry, you're trying, but like if your baby's crying and you're just holding it and you feel nothing, or if your baby's happy and you're just holding it and you feel nothing, there's no attunement and the baby feels like its world isn't being acknowledged.
Yeah. Isn't that also called mirroring or something? It's like you're mirroring your child's emotions, and that basically it validates their emotions. It's you're showing them that their emotions matter.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
It's so
But
funny
like,
because like I had an ex who I remember one of his earliest memories when he was about 8, maybe not his earliest memory, but when he was about 8, a friend of his died. And he kept asking, before the friend died, he kept asking adults, like, is he going to be okay? And they're like, yeah, he'll be fine. He'll be okay. He'll be okay. And then he died and he was really upset about it. And his parents were kind of like, they didn't validate how sad he was. And they sort of ignored it, brushed it under the rug, like just tried to like move past it. Like, it'll be fine. You'll be fine. But he didn't feel taken care of in that way. And I know it must have been a defining moment for him because I heard about it. So it's like I don't know if he knows how it's affected him, but he just knew it affected him.
oh, of course, both just the death of a friend and to deal with death so young before you really understand your life. But then for the people that are supposed to take care of you to not take care of your emotional needs, not to let you know it's okay to be sad, that it is appropriate to be sad, that this is something that should be acknowledged and nurtured and revisited, that it's not just this one-time sadness, which is like, I think a lot of people deal with that, which is they feel a lot of guilt for not getting over things quicker and for bringing things up more than once. Like you're supposed to cry once that your dad died and then get over it, when you're like, he was important to me, he was my father, you know what I mean? Like I think that's often neglected, but in that situation, absolutely, that is 100% a form of emotional neglect at a time where there's people that do that to adults, but at least adults have the wherewithal to know that's not okay. But yeah, I could imagine both the death itself and also how his parents reacted to it. I think what took me so long to accept that this was a form of abuse in my family is because, like I said, nothing was done on purpose. And there's always examples of it being worse. But like people talk about when women are depressed right after childbirth,
Postnatal, postpartum.
postpartum depression.
Yeah.
So postpartum depression, clearly isn't, great. It doesn't feel good. You're sad. And it now makes you somebody that is having trouble taking care of their kids, because this kid now needs you and you're having trouble taking care of yourself, let alone something else. But really that attunement's not happening. And I remember my mother having Greg and being very depressed and not doing basic things like picking him up when he cries and just not being physically or emotionally present. And again, not her fault and there's no blame, but like realizing like, oh, at the most important time where there's supposed to be a mother child connection, my mom couldn't do that. And what signal forever, because like what happens when you're younger, whether we'd like to believe it or not, or like to accept it or not, those first couple of years are foundational. And you might not remember them, but you'll always feel whatever is happening in that moment. And then as you continue to have memories like your friend did, then you start to be like, hey, I think this really messed me up.
Yeah.
But there are things that you don't remember that have messed you up. And I do feel like what is not talked about, because nobody wants to blame the mother, and they can't, because it's something that's going on with them. But this is, you're not connected to your kid, and your kid is absorbing that, and it's setting a foundational emotional palette that they'll forever not understand why they don't feel their feelings or why they don't feel connected to people. And I know everybody talks about it. It just sucks to be a parent where you're like, I'm doing everything I can, trying to put food on the table, trying to be there, and you're like, and I'm still fucking them up. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
right.
like,
But did you hug
sucks.
them? It's like, well, no, I didn't hug them. I forgot. I was too busy cooking.
I was tired.
Yeah.
You want to be hugged all the time. I think what I really struggled with was like, I was a surrogate parent and I was a surrogate spouse.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they said this is from Psychology Today, but they said often what happens is the child doesn't think it's abuse because they just feel special. Like this is the attention they're getting. And I realized my whole life I like helping people because it's the positive attention I got as a kid.
Yeah.
If I did the laundry, if I took care of my brothers, if you know what I mean, if I did everything, I was rewarded with attention. And if I didn't, it was the other form of abuse where you're being yelled at and things are being thrown and what have you. So it's like I was really
like, what
put in
kind
a
of
box.
attention? Would they like hug you and say good job, or would they like come watch this thing with us? You know, like what kind of attention did you get as a reward?
My dad was very positive, so my dad would be like, great job, and you know what I mean. My dad is like, it was positive, it was verbal positive reinforcement.
Okay.
And then my mom, it was the lack of the other form of abuse. So my mom just wasn't violent.
You
Or my mom just
didn't get screamed at and hit.
exactly.
And then your dad saying great job. Yeah. Your dad has that kind of air about him, actually. You just want to like win his approval. And like I've only seen him for a few minutes, 8 years apart, but like the whole time I'm like, I hope he likes me.
Yeah. And it's like he gives you a lot of attention in the sense that it'll be like, Maria, what have you been up to? What are you doing? Like he wants to know about you. And then when he hears something that he's like, good for you, you're taking Spanish classes, that's great. Like he just kind of gives you that vibe where you're like, well, I got it. I told Mr. Mealy I'm taking Spanish classes. I can't ever quit. Like,
yeah.
I can't disappoint him. And then the truth is, the fact is if you came back and you'd be like, how's Spanish classes going? And you're like, oh, I gave up. And he'd be like, well, that's a bummer. Like he would literally be like, well, you know, maybe you can get back into it. Like there's no like, you know, life changes and, you know, I'm sure you're doing something else cool. It's always like, well, that's the fact I know about you. And sounds like you don't really fall through.
Yeah, that's
like,
the thing, is that's what he would come to the conclusion of. It's like, oh, so you don't follow through. I got you.
Yes. No, it's always an analyzing. And it's always like, if you told somebody you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And you're like, I just wanted to see if I knew Spanish.
Yeah,
like,
I did do it for 2 lessons. I know it. It's fine.
Yeah. My therapist today, she just had somebody doing something in her house and she's like, I'm so sorry, just give me a second. And she was speaking Spanish. And I was like, what? Como, I know what? And you said faucet. So just so you know, you probably shouldn't speak Spanish in front of me because I heard everything you said. She's like, great.
Also,
like,
I'm not a faucet. I'm not a faucet. Look at me. I'm not crying. Okay.
Are you telling them my business? You said faucet. I'm crying. Do you feel like any of this was a part of your childhood?
No.
You don't feel like the controlling part?
Which one? Like, what's that part?
The being overly controlled, lots of attention, but you don't learn to think, feel, act, or react for yourself.
Oh, that is neglect. That feels like the opposite of neglect.
Yeah, and they even say that might feel like, but basically your emotions are being neglected because you're being controlled.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think it's supposed to be that you allow your child to fend for themselves or figure some things out for themselves to gain some autonomy, and but you guide them and support them along the way. Like that's how to be a good parent. And either you let them do too much for themselves or you do everything for them. So I guess if both are neglect, then yeah. Weird how we're friends then. If you're the type of person who likes to do things for people and I'm the type of person who's had people do things for them. Oh no.
Yeah. It makes sense though. Like we're like the yin and yang of abuse in some ways, where it's the same form, but like it's I'm a doer and I clearly try to win love by doing things for people, and you want people to do stuff for you, or people always did stuff for you. You're not wrong.
Which part am I not wrong about?
That our bond is probably based on child abuse.
Yeah, it was almost beautiful.
I was going to say, reading this, not that I think your parents are overly religious, but the overly controlled made me think of my friends that come from very, very strict religious upbringing, where you had to like, not even just like on Sundays they had these rules, but like your whole life had rules. And like I also grew up in a family of like speak when spoken to. I remember, I think the reason I got into comedy and I liked comedy was because these people were able to openly talk about their opinions, and they had opinions. And I remember until I was a teenager thinking I didn't have opinions because I wasn't allowed to speak any of them.
That's why I like comedy. I was like, oh, people are speaking their mind freely and they can say whatever they want up there. That's great. I always thought that that's why I was attracted to comedy, because I always felt like there was a lot I couldn't say around my family. And I had a small childhood moment of being quieted down when when I was 8. Another 8-year-old one. Uh,
Eight's a pivotal year,
a
man.
friend of mine said she got her period, which is really early for 8.
Very,
And then
yeah, very early.
I told my parents, I was like, I think my friend got her period. And my dad freaked the fuck out. And he was like, don't speak about that ever again, like blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I was so embarrassed and ashamed. And I ran to the bathroom and started crying because they had someone over. And like, I don't know, like it's a little moment, a very little moment. But I think that made me feel like it wasn't safe to say anything.
Of course, because here it is, like, this is something super confusing, especially 8. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that would be confusing as a 12 or 13-year-old when it around starts to happen. But 8 is so young and you don't understand, and blood is scary, and you're trying to get information and you're just being told that you just did something wrong.
Right. And like my little 8-year-old brain was like, what's wrong with talking about? I guess that's wrong. And I'm ashamed and embarrassed. Little things in your childhood will affect you, which is almost not fair to the parents. It's like, you're going to have this thing, and like this child, every little thing you do is going to fuck them up.
Yeah. It's true though. I mean, I always loved that Louis C.K. joke where he was just like, oh, a little bit of damage there. Like, I'm butchering it, but he would always be like, oh, that's my handiwork. That tick, I did that. Like,
yeah.
But it is, I mean, I absolutely like, and it's not fair in the sense that like the world's happening around them. It's nurture and nature. Like, you know what I mean? Things that happen at school and da, 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 da. And also, like I said, most people are just trying to do bare minimum: shelter, food, fucking physical safety. And then when they find out there's been emotional neglect, they're like, like you ate. And I think that's how my dad really felt. Like, he was just like, you had a better childhood than I did, which I absolutely did. You wanted for nothing. Like, when we didn't have much, I didn't know, I was fed, so it didn't matter. And I was safe, and they made sure we went to good public schools, and I was dyslexic and they made sure we got extra whatever. He's like, I did my job. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of resentment in parents where they're like, you grew up full-fledged adult with, your teeth. I did what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it does suck because
it's sort of like The Office Space when Jennifer Aniston's working at the restaurant and the manager pulls her aside and he's like, let's talk about your flair. She's like, you don't like my flair? And he's like, well, it's just, you only have 37 pieces of flair. She's like, that's the minimum. Like, he was like, that's just the minimum. Like, Susie over there has like 50 pieces of flair, but Brian knew whatever. I can't remember. Yeah. It's been so long since I've seen it, but it's like, that's how parents feel. It's like, I did the minimum. I'm wearing the flair that you asked me to wear.
You're alive and I fed you. Fuck off. And they're not wrong. Like, I absolutely get it. And you're right that it's these little moments that can have a profound effect. And I think what I also struggled with in therapy is that the same way we do compare and contrast of people getting things in the business, we do the same thing with childhood. Well, like, I wasn't beaten, my dad never punched me in the face, so I didn't have physical abuse. Or, I wasn't abandoned on a highway, so I didn't have neglect abuse. Like, you have these extremes and you're like, well, if I didn't have these extremes, I didn't experience this thing. But it's like, it's A, in the context of your own life, you can't compare. And B, everybody takes in things differently. My dad's sensitive, my siblings are sensitive, I'm sensitive. I do take in little things harder than some people do. So I might tell a story of my childhood and so we'd be like, yeah, it happened to me. It doesn't really bother me. And I'd be like, oh, that was a turning point when I realized I couldn't trust adults and that I was alone in this world. You know what I mean? Oh, cool. That was like a Friday for you. That's when I knew I had to fend for myself.
Yeah.
It isn't fair. I agree with that. And that's why I also feel like, I don't think it's a caveat. My parents were incredible parents. My parents did an amazing job, and everything that they missed, my therapist is fixing. Because there's so many things that I now through therapy really like about myself. And I'm like, oh, my dad did that. And I'm like this because of my dad, and my mom was like this, and I'm proud of that. My mom did that. But there's also like quirks that I'm like, my mom did that, my dad did that. I'm fortunate that it wasn't deprivational abuse. That's like, how do you come back from that? That's crazy. And also my parents loved me and they just wanted us to be okay. And I think you're nobody's perfect. They were dealing with their own horrible childhoods and own abuse. And it's funny, I just posted that joke about pasta, and that was like a big deal for me to write that joke about pasta, where I basically go like, hey, I've been in therapy, and I got into comedy because my parents were a product of, because I'm a product of mental illness abuse, and I know this because my parents were a product of mental illness abuse, and I have a cat and she's a product of mental illness and abuse. And it was a big deal for me to acknowledge that was there without blaming my parents, because I think that's so important, because they were also a product of the same thing. I really like that quote where it's like, your wounds are not your fault, but healing them is your responsibility.
Yes.
And so I think our parents weren't raised that way. They have these wounds. They just kind of downloaded them onto us. But I think as therapy and mental health start to become more in the zeitgeist, it is kind of our job to break the pattern.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm going to have children, but I do want to be a good aunt to my nieces and nephews, to my friends' kids, and to my future kitten.
Exactly. And me.
Yeah. I'd like to. I don't think I'm raising you, but yeah.
Don't neglect us.
In conclusion, I would like to hear anybody that's kind of wrapped their head around this kind of emotional abuse as a child, what they've kind of learned from it, what patterns they've seen that they've done, how they've kind of, I don't know if grown out of it is the right way of phrasing it, but how they've kind of worked through that process and make sure that they don't, like, a good example is, I definitely was somebody that would stuff down their emotions and hide them. And then I would explode, and it would explode. I remember this so clearly as a child, not especially as an adult, but as a child, I remember just would tell everybody nothing. And then I remember once I went to go put my hair up and my hairband broke and I didn't have it. Yeah. And I just flipped out. Yeah. Because I broke my hairband.
Yeah.
And
I've definitely gotten to that point where I'm just like, the small things don't work. And I'm like, I can't fucking handle it. It's just the thing that breaks you. But yeah, you can write to us at 2non-doctors. That's 2non-doctors@gmail.com. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, guys. Bye.